Welcome students. In our previous sessions we would have learned about the controlling processes, how to build a controlling process in an organization. So these are the steps to build a controlling process: setting up of performance standards, measurement of actual performance and comparison the actual performance with the standards, and to analyze the deviation and taking corrective actions. So this is the final step in a controlling process, and we will see what are all the corrective actions that needs to be taken in case of any deviation now. So if the controlling authority finds deviation as in the defectiveness of the material that is being manufactured, the controlling authority needs to change the quality specification for the material used. Every product or every material that is being manufactured will have some quality specifications, and the controlling authority can try to change the quality specifications by changing the suppliers or trying out a different brand of product, so on and so forth. So this will finally end up in producing a material that whose standard is up to the expected level. We will see a detailed example for this in the next slide. Second one, defective machinery. To manufacture materials and for other things, every company, every organization will have some sort of machineries. So if an organization or the controlling authority finds that there is a defective machinery, they should repair the existing machinery or replace the machine if it cannot be repaired. So repairing is kind of a easy job, and it is less costly than replacing the machinery overall. So if the organization were able to repair the existing machinery, they should do it first. But if it wasn't possible, they should replace the machinery with a new one. And if they find an absolute machinery, which absolute machinery means one that has exist one that has crossed its useful lifetime, one has that has become too old. So if the controlling authority finds such a machinery, they should undertake a technological upgradation, which means to buy a brand new machine, to buy a machine whose technology is up to date. And if they find a defective process, they should modify the existing process and come up with a new process which is more functional and more eh, neat. So defective physical conditions of work. If there are any defectives in the physical conditions of the where the employees work, if the physical environment of the employees in a factory or in a company is wasn't favorable for working, if they find that the working conditions weren't favorable, they need to change the physical conditions for the betterment of the employees. Like if it is too hot, install more air conditioning system, and if the place of work is not accessible easily, they should change the place of work to a more accessible location and likely. So this example shows us how a defective product has been replaced by changing the materials that is used to manufacture the product. So Saco Defense is a manufacturer of defense materials. So defense materials, as in every country has some sort of defense army, navy, air force, and so on and so forth. So those uh, organizations need materials such as weapons or instruments. So these weapons and instruments are being outsourced to other manufacturing companies or production companies. So Saco Defense is one such company, and its job is to create products for the US Navy. So the US Navy has a particular quality standard, and if the companies that are manufacturing their items do not meet those quality standards, the Navy organization will not buy their products. So Saco Defense Limited has been supplying the materials for the US Navy, but after the US Navy felt that their product has not been the up to standard quality, they have ended the contract with the Saco Defense. So to gain back access and to increase their sales, the Saco Defense has changed the processes. For example, they have asked its employees to find if there are any defective bolts in their products. So if the products that are being manufactured have had any defective bolts, the employees can find it, and if they find any defective bolts or any defective parts in the products, they can inform to the superiors or the supervisors. So these problems were solved in three steps. One, the manufacturing units have given more powers to the employees by giving them the responsibility and accountability for the performance and also for the products that they are manufacturing. Second, forming work cells. Work cells means smaller group of employees who will take care of the entire manufacturing process that is within their power. So instead of employing a new manager or a new supervisor to supervise the work done, they have created work cells, and so the work cells will take care of all the manufacturing process defective items, and they will be hold accountable if there are any defective items found. So they have introduced this new mechanism. And the third is reducing the workforce from 760 to 450 employees. This will drastically reduce the cost of processing and manufacturing. So if you are able to reduce the cost for manufacturing, you might be able to utilize that amount in buying other quality products from your suppliers. So Saco Defense Limited did just that. They have reduced their employees and used the money to build other quality products. So after doing all this, they have gained back the access to the Navy, US Navy contracts, and they have also increased their turnover, and they have expanded their business globally. So this is how a company deals with any defect in its products. So they next we're going to see some techniques in managerial control. So there are two kinds of techniques to control in an organization. One is traditional techniques, which means the techniques that has been used for over centuries, and the modern techniques are something that has been started to be used in the past 1 or 2 decades, in like the early 2000s. So traditional techniques are personal observation, statistical reports, break-even analysis, and budgetary control. Personal observation means the supervisor or the manager himself going to the production unit and watching over the employees if they are working good, if they are working the right amount, and if they are wasting time, so on and so forth. So this kind of creates psychological pressure on the employees and make them work well, because if the manager catches them red-handed wasting their time, the chances of them getting fired from the company are high. So this creates a pressure to them to work harder and harder. So this is a personal observation. The only thing is that the manager will have to lose a lot of time in personally going to the manufacturing place and watching over how the employees are working. So other than that, the manager has a lot of advantages in this, including getting first-hand information instead of relying on someone else's ideas. Second is statistical reports. Statistical reports is just a mathematical reports that contains the average and the percentages, ratios, and correlations. So ratio of number of employees to the ratio of amount of goods produced, or the correlation between two things such as the happiness of the employees and the number of units manufactured, so on and so forth. So these are all just mathematical terms which are being finalized after n number of research activities in companies. So these graphs, charts, and presentations that are finalized after acquiring this information, such as the ratios and correlations, make the observing easy, where the manager doesn't have to actually visit the manufacturing facility or anything, and they will acquire how the business is performing from sitting on their seat in the office itself. So statistical reports has an advantage of better time consuming than personal observation. So break-even analysis is a whole new subject. There are separate subjects to study the break-even analysis. How it works is, break-even analysis finds the relationship between cost, volume, and profit. Cost means the cost incurred to manufacture a certain item. Volume means the total amount of sales, or the total number of goods that are being manufactured, or the total revenue that has been incurred. Profit means if you reduce the total sales from the cost, you will end up with profit. So that's how profit is calculated. So if you find the process of finding the relationship between these three is called a break-even analysis. So once a company starts research on their cost, volume, and profit analysis, they will be able to know whether the company is making profit or loss when they sell n number of units, so and so number of units. So if I'm not earning profits by selling 1000 units per month, maybe I would need to sell more, let's say 2000 units. So if I achieve that level, maybe I will be able to receive these profits. So instead of actually selling 2000 units, I can create a report called break-even analysis report, which will show me how many number of units that I need to sell to actually start earning profit. So break-even analysis formula is fixed cost divided by selling price minus variable cost. Fixed costs are costs that are fixed no matter how many number of units are being produced. Variable cost is something that increases with increase in the number of units. That's called it's a break-even point formula. So it shows the optimal level of sales that needs to be made in the certain period. Like I said, I will be able to know what is the exact amount of quantity that I need to sell in a particular period to actually start earning profit. That's called break-even analysis. Next one is budgetary control. So where all the operations are planned in advance and actual performance is compared with the standards. So this is a technique that companies have been using for centuries, wherein before even starting to manufacture, the management will come up with the budget telling how many units they can produce and what will be the revenue if they were able to produce such units, and they will come up with the rough number of how much profit they can earn in the upcoming financial year. So this process is called budgeting. So after budgeting is done and after the year is completed, they will compare the actual amount of revenue that has been earned by the company to the budget that they have prepared at the beginning of the year. So after comparison, the company will come to know what are all the corrective measures that they need to take to make the manufacturing pace up to the expected standard. So but if the manufacturing pace is faster than the expected standard, they can increase their standard in the next year. So that is called budgeting. There are different forms of budget: sales budget, production budget, material, cash, capital, and research and development budget. Sales budget refers to an estimation of how much amount of sales that could be done in the upcoming year. Production budget is an estimation of how much units that the company plans to produce in the upcoming year. Material budget is the estimated quantity and cost of materials that the company would require to make the production that is in the production budget. Cash budget is the anticipated cash inflow and outflow, which means the expected cash inflow, how much cash a company will receive and how much cash a company will pay in the upcoming year. And capital budget is the estimated spending on major long-term assets. Long-term asset means fixed assets. Example, building, furnitures and fixtures, machinery, so on and so forth. If the company has to buy any of these assets, or they have to build a new factory or major equipment, something that is a huge expense, it's called a capital budget. Research and development budget is important for every organization. They need to research and develop their products up to the expected standards of the market. So how much amount of cash that needs to be invested in researching and developing and increasing the quality of their product is research and development budget.